This video is sponsored by Squarespace. Welcome to Milan. I'm heading into the centre of Milan now. I'm just taking the RX1 with me. Got my little Uniqlo backup battery for the Pocket 3, RX1 extra batteries. Leaving the A7C 2 and the Samyang at home because they've had enough love on this trip so far. So it's time for a few hours in winter light with just the RX1 in the centre of Milan. Let's go. That was, you might recognise from the Wonka movie with Timothée Chalamet. That was the Galleria Vittorio Emanuele II, or the second. It was nice. It's a bit crazy crowded. There's not much light actually hitting the crowd in there, and everyone's kind of circulating. I want to go back in a bit if the light sort of changes. On the way out, it's much more interesting. So you have people kind of pointing around and the light's hitting them from the back. So I'm going to go back in and have another swing and see what happens. And then behind me, in front of me, behind you, the Duomo. Maybe this is an interesting backdrop. Obviously it's very beautiful. Can't really knock that, but want to try figure out some photos around here. When I went to Paris and shot around the Eiffel Tower, the tower was actually one of the less interesting things. It was much more the people who were there, the tourists. So I want to see what we can find around here. I'd like to take a moment to share with you the sponsor of this video, Squarespace. You might know already, but I've been using Squarespace long before they sponsored the channel. I use Squarespace to run my store and publish my monthly newsletter using their email campaign tools. Updating my street photography portfolio using their image galleries couldn't be easier, and it's the perfect way to showcase your work outside of social media. Their easy to use templates and drag and drop design tools mean that you can create a professional looking website with no prior web design skills. Why not get started at squarespace.com with a free trial? And when you're ready to launch, go to squarespace.com/GeorgeHolden to get 10% off your first purchase of a website or domain. Now, let's get back to taking photos. I always find when you get to like a landmark like this, it's going to be crazy busy, and it can be a bit like, oh, what do I shoot? So you have to kind of do a couple of laps and figure out what it is you want to try and get. And luckily at the moment, we have some stuff that we can play with. So the light is quite strong. We've got a lovely low winter light and it's coming from behind everyone in that direction. But you can see the light isn't going all the way back to the statue. It's kind of just the entrance coming out of the Galleria. So we have kind of all around here to play with. Over there in the shadow, it's a bit more tricky. There are definitely a lot of people who are like posing for shots. So sometimes no one's doing like an interesting pose that you could kind of pair with things. Everyone's kind of just doing like the influencer, like, oh yeah. So I'm less interested in that. But there's people gathering, like regrouping, families, people who are tired, trying to figure out where they're going next. So there's maps. There's not too many maps to play with. I want to go around and see if we can catch some interesting poses. There's lots of these massive balloons. I saw one kid really in the distance with his balloon fly away. So something like that would be really cool. There's something about these balloons, at first they annoyed me, but now I actually kind of like them. And they keep on going slightly into the sun. I'm trying to get something where they're kind of like half blocking the Duomo. So we have like the Duomo as the back layer. These balloons is kind of like the mid layer, and I want to get something in the foreground. Yeah, I like the colours. The Duomo is looking very nice. I think with a bit of patience, hanging around here, we might find something interesting. I'm going to call that the end of today in Milan. I've got maybe 2-3 hours tomorrow, so I might come out again with the RX1 and the A7C 2. There was good light for a while. I got a couple of shots I was happy with. Specifically, the shot of the Duomo through the pillars with the two kids with like the Winnie the Pooh and the Pikachu balloons. I really liked that. But of the shots that I was actually trying to get, not much really worked. Back tomorrow with hopefully some more shots. Out here, day 2. Currently got A7C with the Samyang 35, of course, and ND filter on the front. Doing a little bit of like street video at the moment. It's pretty quiet. I might do some photography around here. I'm not really used to shooting quieter spots these days. I want to challenge myself to do that. But getting more like establishy shots, little sequences of video. Really enjoying this setup. There's a little trick that a friend told me on Sony cameras to get better stabilization, because I'm just shooting everything you're seeing at the moment. It's handheld, and a lot of it is not in slow-mo, it's just at 25p. A little trick is to set your steady shot stabilization to manual and then set it to your specific focal length. So I got mine set to 35mm. So everything you're seeing at the moment is just steady shot with the 35. Sometimes I've got active on as well, but it all looks pretty good. And the light is starting to come out, so let's shoot a little bit more. Interesting old doorway is interesting, but it needs someone or something to make it much more interesting. And that is something I'm struggling with around here. There's not getting heaps of people. A couple of shots that I have done today though, that I did kind of like, in my head I'm just calling them layers for the sake of layers. But essentially when you have two people in the foreground talking about something, or whatever, interacting, and then in the background having one subject to kind of sit in between them. It kind of works as like a rule of odds sort of thing. There needs to be some sort of better link, or whether it's pattern or colour or gesture or something to link them together. But that kind of foreground with two, background with one, works well for like a nice layer and some framing. They look pretty, but I think there needs to be more to relate the foreground to the background to make them better photos. I also spotted this before. This is one of these little Citroen Mi's, little tiny city cars. There's quite a lot of these here in Milan. But this one's kind of like in the Golf livery, sort of like the Williams Formula 1 team. Yeah, Citroen Ami. But yeah, it looks like Williams-esque. Shout out Albon. Shout out Sainz this year. Anyway, F1 chat over. Hang on, this isn't Milan. I'm somewhere else in the northern part of a European country. Oh no, I'm back in Manchester. Sad. I forgot to finish this video in Milan, but I remembered everything I was going to say. So I wanted to talk a little bit about making sets in photography, specifically in street photography, and how to group your images together to create more of a story and also structure the way that you shoot. I find that if I'm in a new place taking photos, it can be a bit tempting to shoot a little bit of everything and end up creating kind of a random selection of images that don't really have much to them when you're looking back. So if I'm somewhere new and I'm a little bit overwhelmed with too many things to shoot, too many distracting new shiny things, it can be really good to try focus in on a specific subject or a specific theme in your photos. So say in Milan, I was noticing a lot of people shielding their eyes, so I went for quite a lot of that. We had the nice direct sunlight that made those sort of shots quite simple to get. And then through happenstance, I actually saw several people with other visual characteristics. So a couple of subjects with eye patches, which I managed to shoot, a couple of subjects who were actually blind, walking with sticks, and then also someone looking directly at me while holding a newspaper. So I noticed a bit more of this kind of vision theme, but not just shielding their eyes from the sun, but kind of their eyes interplaying either with the environment or having an interesting characteristic. Likewise with these sets, I also shot a few different groups of dogs, because in Italy, luckily there's lots of lovely dogs around, and Milan was no different. So I collected a nice little set of dog images as well. And with each of these sets of images, I was then sharing these on my Instagram. I'm trying this year to share once per day on Instagram. Whether it's photography, video, whatever, I want to try and be more consistent somewhere else other than YouTube this year. But one of the reasons that I wanted to do this and create these more smaller sets that I can share is to practice with my sequencing and to practice collecting images that can be sequenced together. Because who knows, maybe one day, way down the line, I'm making a small zine or a book, and having the ability to sequence my images in an interesting way will be a good skill to have, and it'll be really good to have a nice body of work to be able to put into those sequences. If you've made it all the way to the end of this video, thank you very much for watching. I suspect the average view duration on this video is going to be lower than usual, so I've got a gift for you for staying all the way to the end. Here is a 20% discount code for my entire store. This covers my RX1 camera guide, my soon-to-come Sony A7C II camera guide, my Kodak film stock presets, my Fujifilm film stock presets, and my naturally filming presets. All three of those preset packs can be bought together in the 3-pack bundle, and then you save an extra 20% with this code. This is an unlimited code, so if you've watched this video in a few months' time, this code is still active. So you can use that, save some money, and pick up whatever you want from my store. As you can likely see from my breath, it is freezing here in Manchester. It's currently -2, middle of the day, -2, fantastic. Back to cold and grey, but we are getting some winter light at the moment. There's a little bit of winter light hitting that building over there. But expect my next video to be here in freezing cold Northern England, as per usual. I'll see you then.